I studied church history, especially the history of the Chinese church during the Cultural Revolution and before that, under Mao. And you see that people suffer and why they suffer, why they have to go through it. It doesn't make much sense at that time, but afterwards, you're looking back. That's how church grew in China. Everybody thought there's no Christians in China after Mao died. But all of a sudden, they found out there's so many Christians. It's actually 10 times more than before the communists took over power. And that's all in the persecutions. And that's where, because people see you are different, you suffer the same fates, I mean, suffer the same hardship, but you are different. You have the peace and joy, which has nothing to do with your material possession, and that's something real, and people are actually hungry for that.
Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Thou art the potter.
I'm Dr. Ping. I'm from Greenwood, Indiana. My wife is Hui, and we have been married for 35 years. I have a non-profit organization that is advocating for entrepreneurship education in schools.
This is The Good Confession. Dr. Ping, take one.
My wife's parents work in the college I went to, so actually through her mom, and her mom and one of my classmates, so they kind of introduced us together. Kind of interesting, kind of feel like we knew each other. Maybe it's hard to say, just like we feel like comfortable with each other, and it seems like we already knew each other. It's kind of weird kind of feeling, but it's good feeling. Married in China, and then she moved to Canada and joined me. I was still in Canada at that time, doing my work on my PhD. Yeah, I grew up in Sichuan province. It's a city called Luzhou, and it's famous for its liquor. And I grew up during the Cultural Revolution, so I saw like mass executions and people fighting on the street. You know, all kind of bad things happened during that time. And my dad was imprisoned because he was a party official, and our whole family was forced out from our apartment, and so we actually lived in a mud house, but it's kind of very long mud house. There are like a dozen families living there. Well, everybody's poor, so you don't feel like you are poor. And also the media is kind of keep saying, you know, you guys are lucky, you know, have Chen Mao. Chen Mao actually is our great savior and all that. It's only after he died when I went to college, and that's I realized that the whole thing was a lie. But at a certain point, you say, okay, they lied to me this and lied me to that, and eventually you came to a conclusion they lied, everything is a lie. And then you say, okay, what am I doing now, right? But that's where I kind of lost faith in communism, is that Satan is a great counterfeiter, and the communism basically is a counterfeit of Christianity. It's kind of promised a heaven, but without God. I was disillusioned. First of all, I lost my faith in communism, and then I lost faith in science, then I lost faith in democracy. Lost faith in communism is really simple, because in the 80s we hear about bad things happened during the Cultural Revolution, and even before that, the 3-year famine and the Great Leap Forward. And then I was I thought that only science, which allowed me, is something I can, is concrete. But when I was doing my PhD program, I realized that science itself has to have theology as a foundation. So by itself, science has really no foundation. So the kind of lost science might believe in science that way. And then the Tiananmen Square massacre happened, and then after that, what happened among the Chinese exiles, and also people who is also working for democracy. I saw so many infighting and all that, and I realized that democracy is also not the answer either, because it all comes down to is we are sinful, right? All the problem is because we are sinners, and if we don't solve that problem, it doesn't matter what kind of system we'll have. So then my wife became a Christian, and that kind of gave me a pressure on that. But by that time, I knew that if I have to believe in some kind of religion, then Christianity is my best bet. So the Christianity has that transformative power, and that's why we got to today. We believe in equality. We believe in we are equal no matter what kind of race, what kind of ethnic groups we belong to or what sex we belong to. That's all from the teachings of the Bible. Well, we went to Bible study for 5 years, and she did all the arguing. I was kind of more quiet and listening. So eventually we can run out questions. At least we came from, the scientific kind of angle, right? Trying to figure out, is there a God, and does a God exist? And always trying to make sense out of it. But eventually you came to the point that you know that it doesn't really help you. And in order to know God, you have to do something. It's kind of like when you're dating. How do you know someone is someone you want to marry, right? You have to have a relationship to know it. So we are kind of wandering outside without having that relationship. But the only way we got to know it is really to have that, and then we know whether or not it is true. So I think that we kind of, at least for me, that's how I made that decision. Is that okay? At a certain point, you have to take it by faith. And I think what happens is the people also around us, people there was helping us. We see the peace in them is something we want. In that case, we kind of only see the true believers for 5 years, and that can help us. But once we got in, and then of course we realized that church is. It's our expectation. It's not realistic, because the church is kind of like a hospital, right? You're going to see all kinds of unhealthy people there. But if it's a good church, then you see people getting better, people recover, people get healed. And that's a process, I think. A lot of churches haven't really paid attention to it. When people became Christians, they need to heal before they become, healthy and strong Christians. A lot of times in the church, we just kind of, okay, once you become Christians, okay, you pay tithe, and then you come to service, then we are good. But not really trying to help them to get to become healthy. When you see you become a Christian, you accept Christ, you accept Him as your Lord. And what that means that you belong to Him. So you live and die for Him. And that's actually kind of a hard pill to swallow, especially you kind of came from the background of communism, like we were slaves, right? And finally we are free, and now we become slaves of Christ. And but I knew from my understanding of the Bible that that's what it is. You have to become a slave to Christ, and that's how you can truly free from this world, from all the worldly desires. But I have to make a decision to be able to give up everything. So for the whole year, 1996, that's how I was struggling with. And by the end of it, I can finally say, okay, that's it. I have to commit myself to Christ. Otherwise, I'm not a real Christian. To be a real Christian, according to the Bible, I have to commit my life to Him and really to live and die for Him. The solution of the communism provides is that it's man-made heaven, and man can become good through education. We don't need a savior. We don't need Christ. So it basically leads people away from Christ, and especially dangerous to people who grew up in the church, because everything else sounds the same. I remember when I came to first time when I went to church, it just made me feel familiar, because that's what we did during the Cultural Revolution. But instead worship God, we worship Mao. But the formality is pretty much the same. We study Mao's, little books instead of the Bible. Communism is very attractive to people who grew up in the church. But the danger is that they will lead people away from Christ. And because they'll promise something that it promised heaven that without God, without Christ. I think in a way it's beneficial to us that during those 5 years we never went to any church. Otherwise, might turn out different.
Why?
Because once you get in the church, like both of us, when we baptized and we started attending church, and then you can see a lot of problems even in the church. So it's not as nice as you thought, right? I mean, there's still a lot of struggles and the power struggles between pastors and the elders, and a lot of Christians, they are not really committed yet. They are still thinking the same thing. They still want the same thing as non-believers. Well, I think the first thing I would challenge them, have they actually committed to their life to Christ? Basically, they have to make the commitment that they are willing to give up everything just to follow Christ. Relationships, material possessions, even their life. I mean, have they honestly made that commitment? And I truly believe a lot of people who were not real Christians because they never made that commitment. They can come to church, right? They can tithe, and that's how far they will go. But they are not going to suffer for Christ. For example, the verse said, it is grace that made me fair, and it is grace that my fear relieved. I really felt that. Before I know God, I really had no fear of God. I mean, I had no concept. But I fear a lot. I fear, other people. I fear, something will happen to me or happen to my wife. But because of the grace that I have fear of God, and also because God is a forgiving God, is God of grace. Even though I have done something bad, I don't have to, be fearful of that. And because also that, I don't fear about any other people. I don't fear about what's going to happen to me tomorrow, because now I have God, and He will take care of everything. 见我世上尽得寻回，下也尽得看见。